always click them all.
All right, welcome to episode 47 of Enterprise Mind. Alex has the topic today, so I will quickly bring it over to him. You are in luck because Ruthie's here for this episode. So she will provide most of the insights, most of the values, like usual. So, Alex, topic for the day.
No pressure, Ruthie. Before we hit the topic, let me do a little icebreaker question because I imagine we will have some distinctly different answers to it. So the questions are, number one, did you know the Super Bowl is on Sunday? And number two, can you say what time it is kickoff, at least in your local time zone? Dave, can you answer these questions?
Yes, but I'm not gonna give it to her because I want to know her
All
answers.
right, Ruthie, can you answer these questions?
I did know the Super Bowl was coming up in the near vicinity. I have no idea what time kickoff is, and I think the Eagles might be involved.
Ooh, not a bad tidbit.
Yeah, okay.
I'll give you a half point for that one. Yeah, as of this morning, there was a news service. I saw an email. I was like, oh, Super Bowl's on Sunday. No way. And then later I Googled it so I could figure out what time it was, which turns out 5:30 in our time zone.
Wow, that's so late. So, we're going to be in bed like an hour later.
So for
Who are you? What?
Like events.
You go to bed at 6?
You're not representing well.
Wow, okay.
I put my kids to bed and I call it a day.
Dave is just stunned.
Okay, we're living very different lives. Very different.
Good kickoff question. Good kickoff.
Yeah, I had no idea. It's just hilarious because this is so bad. I used to run ads for some brands for Super Bowl, and you unless you're licensed, if you ever watch the game, it says you're the official licensed potato chip of the Super Bowl or whatever. You're the official licensed gas station of the Super. I mean, they literally have one for everything. But if you don't have that, you don't have the contract. Therefore, you have to say game day instead of Super Bowl. And the ads always were just so lame because there was always like, get ready for game day. And it was like, that's so generic.
The big event.
There's
a local bank like that
we get today. Sorry, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a local bank like that where they want to, they want to be associated with the NFL team in Minnesota, but they don't pay for it. So then their ads are always go purple. You're like, ooh, just don't. Just
random colors. Just randomly they throw up one that's like go blue and everybody's like, blue? Which one's blue?
Here's one for the home team.
Yeah. Right.
Cool.
Those people, whoever those people are that we cannot name. Contractually.
Yeah, sometimes you should just pay for the real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So funny. All right. Question actually for the day. I was recently talking to a consultant and was trying to give him some SEO advice. We were talking about his different clients. So he's got a little variety, and we'll bring in the variety later. But we'll start out with his first one, which was a local veterinary clinic. And partially tied to this question is also a little stat that I'm going to throw out here too. That Gartner, the kind of marketing, but also estimates and number of like different aspects that company kind of puts together. They call themselves an intelligence company. It's a little generic, but they put together a stat that says by 2026, search volume on all search engines will drop by 25%. And they just put that out just recently. Might have been actually it was last summer, but recently enough. So 2024, 2025, they said by 2026, they said real short time frame, going to drop all over the place by 25%, largely attributed basically to the rise of AI search. And interesting little side note on that is, as of like a year and a half ago, I mean, ChatGPT was basically hitting like perfect early adopter kind of percentages, meaning like 15% of the market had tried it. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a whole chasm in the center as we kind of see our distribution curve. We're just barely getting that first one, starting to hit that second one kind of a thing. I'm sure we're now probably well into that second one, but do you really So it's kind of a two-parter kind of question. It's one, kind of general SEO advice for small businesses today, going into these next couple of years are going to be times of transition. And then two, do you believe this Gartner number? Do you think that AI search is really going to take down global search engine traffic by that much?
So my take on this is I have a hard time believing stats like that. Is really good headlines, and it's good for them to be able to have people go, well, that, that's like 70% of my conversions, if I look at my analytics, but what am I going to do? How do we do this? And, we've talked about it before where SEOs aren't just search engine specialists, they're findability specialists, right? Like, you actually have to figure out how the internet works, how the search engines make sense of the internet, and then how that technology ultimately is being leveraged by the AI models now. They're all very related, all very connected, So I think the SEO world is in a good spot to handle that transition. But I think the data that we have now, right? Anytime if you're data driven, ultimately what you're doing is you're just looking backwards and trying to say, yeah, the future is going to be exactly like the past, which we know is not true. So I think the data right now is all of the early adopters, is the tech people going, I'm going to, I have to figure this out before everybody else does. So it's a weird snapshot of the overall market. And I don't necessarily think it's representative, because I was thinking about this the other day too, where, we'd spent a lot of time when ChatGPT first came out talking about it on this podcast, just trying to make sense of it for ourselves, right? Let alone, everybody else. And then I thought, man, so many people are going to adopt this and just like see the writing on the wall, and like, we're in trouble. Like, I got to figure this out like now. And then nobody did. I mean, they might have messed around with a little bit, but like most normal people that I know, they've heard about it. They might have tried a free version like here or there if they're curious. But for the most part, they're just not using it. Right now, in the marketing side, a lot more people are using it, but even to the extent of what I thought people would be using it for, I'm not seeing it, like the wholesale adoption. I think, Ruthie, what you said last time in the last episode of like, it's actually an investment. You need to keep up on all of the updates on the LLMs to even know what they're capable of now, because they keep launching all these new features and new ways of doing things. So it's just hard to know how that's actually going to hit at this point.
I'll use that as a good segue into some of the initial thoughts I had from Alex's question. Okay, so the first comment I've got written down here is, I was listening to Adam Grant, one of his, I think it was either Rethinking or Work Life, with one of the founders of Airbnb. Great podcast series, fantastic interviews that cover all kinds of things. And at the end of this particular discussion, Adam Grant had asked, hey, what's your hot take on Airbnb or on AI? And the response was like, it's not going to change as fast as everyone expects, but the changes ultimately will be more drastic than anyone's anticipating, probably in ways you can't even anticipate. So I always keep that top of mind of, there's likely to be a lot of changes that we don't even know are going to be changes until we see there, and we're living in a very different world. And so I think that dovetails nicely, Dave, with the comment you made about, hey, ChatGPT came out and we thought like, oh, this is going to be amazing. We're just going to use it. And it's like, oh, it's kind of taken off, but it's not the mass adoption. It's like a slow roll, right? Where I suspect the avalanche will catch up, and all of a sudden it'll be a very drastic change, but a slow roll. In terms of, I'm thinking about this SEO statistic of like search going down by 25%. And the experience that comes to mind is something that I wrote down some notes a couple days ago. I was perusing the internet, as one does, for flowers. We are in dahlia tuber purchasing season. If anyone has ever heard of tulip mania, in the Netherlands a few hundred years ago, people like to claim that dahlia mania is a thing now, where people just buy a lot of dahlia tubers and they spend buku bucks on it. Well, anyways, it's sort of a phenomenon that happens in certain parts of the internet around January when all the tuber sales go online. So I'm taking a look. I'm looking for, hey, what am I going to be purchasing this year for all of my pots? I've got a couple of go-to websites that I take a look at to see, hey, like what are their offerings? And what's amazing is, as I search for various flowers or plant varieties, boy, the Google results are rough. It's the same big box retailers over and over again, not just in the paid, but also in the organic results. And it's really annoying, frankly, because I already saw what they have. I want somebody niche who has a different variety or a very specific plant. And it's very hard to get search results to display different things than sort of what the big box common search results are. And I'd like to say I'm pretty decent at making search engines respond with the types of things that I want. And it's really hard to get them to offer you tailored results or something that's a little distinct. It has to be very long tail. And even in that case, it's very difficult. So I'll give you an example. I checked out a couple of sites. I happened to find this particular type of dahlia called Bloomquist Cracker, like this really cool red flower. And I was like, that's amazing. I want to find a seller who not only has that variety, but 5 other varieties I want to buy at the same time. And so I search for that. Same result. Big box retailers not even selling that particular tuber. It's showing me a bunch of other places that sell dahlia tubers, but not that particular one. Where I'm going with this is ultimately I hit a website that I've used before called dahliaaddicts.com. And what it does is it lists every single variety, and it lists all the different places that sell it with their price. Presumably they work with sellers, or sellers can list their varieties on the website. And what's amazing is how old school is that? I'm going to this one particular website that is sort of the hub for all these different things. I can't go to Google to do that. I have to go to these very niche websites. And the reason I bring this up is because, boy, if that's the current experience, and AI can do a better job, or different AI models can do a better job of finding this kind of niche information and serving it up in a personalized manner to me, of course mainstream search is going down by 25%. Of course it is, because mainstream search isn't personalized. So I wonder if it's something more that these various different AI models are going to take the role of our current search experience over time to be more niche, to be more personalized. I can give more specific information, and I don't just end up with the same 5 websites over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, I think the personalized piece is an interesting direction of that, just because as you were talking, I started thinking like, okay, well, what are the search engines using, or like what was promised us for good results? And so much of it was based on your search history, your click activities, all of these things that are now barred by the data privacy laws, either in particular states or globally. So then a natural reaction to that would be, okay, well then what's a good proxy for generally good information? An established brand, right? So it's like, I understand that logic, but to your point, if you are into a particular thing, it's really hard to find those because you either go to the company that you know. Like for me with guitars, I have narrowed down my interest in guitar builders to 2 or 3. One of which does not have very good distribution because it's a mom and pop company from like 1950 that's in California, and it's still family run, and they still hand make them in California. So you have to pay out the wazoo for the product, but oh my God, is it like the best thing that you've ever played? Right. Now, it has taken me 20 years of playing to get to that point. But now that I'm there, I really can't go back. So, you have to sign up for other things like the newsletters, like the, the company alerts or whatever to be able to get the information that you need instead of relying on the guitarcenter.com or sweetwater.com or, whoever else. So what did you want, Alex? Where are you going to take it?
It was a bit of a mind-blown statement just there of, I think I finally understand what AI could do that Google can't do. So we talked last time about how really there is no cloud. And in that aspect of when you search the internet, I was just talking to a friend and kind of his comment was all around this, but I was like, when you talk about you search the internet, you searched Google's index. You didn't search the internet. That's 2 different things. The internet, to be honest, is more of a concept than anything, but it's all of the websites and all of the web content out there. But that's not what you can access on Google. What you can access on Google is just what Google has indexed. But then on top of that, it's what Google's algorithm shows you out of that index. So it's a bubble within a bubble kind of a thing.
Right.
And if you're stuck and you recognize the edges of this bubble and you're dissatisfied with it, you don't really have a great alternative. Microsoft, yes, is a slight alternative with Bing, but if you look at search volume share, no. And if people are really, really disappointed with something, they're going to basically eventually change behavior. Or if they find that, hey, somebody found a better thing, it could be better deals on flights. It could be better, something else that Google isn't surfacing to you, and someone else is, saving money or making money or something like that. That will definitely cause a drive in that direction. And if AI companies can crawl enough sites to build enough of an index that has enough variety to it, and you can say, hey, on Perplexity, I found this deal for this flight, but on ChatGPT, I found this deal for this flight, and Google, of course, was 2 times that amount. You're going to see adoption radically change up.
Alex, it's interesting you bring that, because here's at least my first thought in response to what you said. Just like we've talked with some of the Clayton Christensen management principles, the very thing that is going to drive people to AI will be the very thing that will be its downfall as well. Because just like the search engines as they are now, it requires a certain amount of personal data in order for you to leverage all of the features. And it's up to the individual to decide how much of the data, how much of my personal information am I willing to share in order for this to actually be feasible and work, right? For example, the operator thing that has come out with ChatGPT or some of these other ones where it actually clicks and does things for you. Like, do I love the idea of just saying, I want a family vacation to Greece. Here are our favorite islands, set it up for this weekend. Yeah, that would be amazing. Am I about to give a non-sentient being my credit card? No, because I have no recourse if it screws up. At least if I have a personal assistant, I can sue them and fire them. Right? But if I screwed up because I set up the bot wrong, that's on me. And for me personally, I don't imagine myself being in a position where I'm comfortable with that amount of my information out there. Right.
I also want to go back to this idea you talked about, the surface of the bubble. And man, that's such a cool way of describing it. And this idea that when you're searching Google, you're not searching the internet. It's true, you're searching Google's index. And the things that come to mind are, hey, the wealth of knowledge available on the internet has changed it's changed our option set, and it's changed our expectations about what's possible, and about what we can, possibly get, either via information or product, or connection to other people. It's just changed our expectations in a really big way. And I think a couple of things. First, it's not so much that search is getting worse. It's more that our expectations have expanded beyond it. And being able to match those new expectations, while also trying to manage the competition for attention within the marketplace of Google's index, is very difficult. And I think we've had a couple of conversations about this where people are spending more of their time and attention, and they're getting information from platforms like Instagram, from platforms like TikTok, or niche listing sites like Dahlia Addicts. And I think that's the reaction to hitting that edge of the bubble that you talked about. And they're trying to find an alternative. And right now it's in those little niche places. And then to Dave, some of the things you talked about, right? The value of AI is that it's going to allow you to better access those niche areas that are beyond the current bubble of the search engine.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's cool. So if I'm a local SEO person, that's curious. Like, that's kind of cool in a couple of ways. So one is like small business SEO. I think one of the, right, maps is where it's at. Being able to search a random thing and having maps serve up, oh, we think that this company or this organization has the thing that you're looking for and it's right down the street. That's really cool. And I don't think that's going anywhere, because people use maps. They're going to continue to use maps, whether it be Apple Maps, Google Maps, some other map. Like, that basic mechanism, I think, is going to continue. I think what shifts, though, is if you're a small business looking to reach a wider audience, especially that niche audience that's on the other side of the country, now all of a sudden you potentially have a new outlet, and maybe there's a way in which you don't have to compete with the big boxes. You're able to get that niche audience. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. Is it you double down on the dahliaaddicts.com type sites? You make sure you're available on those places so that a given AI assistant can access it and sort of has the connections. Maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. That's a question I'm curious your thoughts on.
I do think it depends on your model. I know in a couple of our in-person, off-camera lunches, we've discussed different things. And I had met with a former coworker who's now doing real estate, and just to bounce ideas off on, what's the potential strategy? Because, it's one thing to be a marketer. It's another thing to be a business owner who is marketing, right? That's a very different thing because you have more on your plate. And he asked me about SEO and kind of the digital marketing mix and all of that. And I said, you don't really want SEO when you're starting out, because it's a mass communication tool. And you're very focused on this particular part of the Twin Cities, and that's great. If you want to be known as, that guy in that part of the state, that's fantastic. But that means you set up your Google business. You make sure that you get people to leave you reviews. You have your website so you can maintain an owned media experience so that you can control your messaging, for whatever happens. And all of your other marketing should be within that locale to build up your name within that locale. So sponsoring the elementary school choir, or, the local Dogs with Cancer 5K, or, whatever the charity event is that you can get involved in, for however much your budget is, right? I mean, all those are but then you show up and you participate in those things too, so that they can associate your ad with your face in the community. Right. And that's a very old school tactics, which again is like anytime the technology changes, what's old is new again. Because I think that's really what's going to separate out the people who are serious and the people who are, in their basement or in their apartment, who don't want to talk to people and just use the AI to get a portion of the market who just want the information and they'll try it. And if they don't like it, they'll throw it away. Right. I mean, that's definitely a section of the market, but it's not where I like to play, so my strategy is going to be different.
I think I had since I'm reflecting on a conversation, I've kind of had there's a mix of both of yours. So from a content perspective, to Ruthie's point, I mentioned, since this is a veterinary clinic, if they're bringing in, let's say, a surgeon to do additional surgeries or something like that, list those services, but make sure you list basically everything that you can do on your site. There's different types of vets out there as well. Some only do small animals, some do cats and dogs. There's a whole bunch of different types as well. Mm-hmm. One of the other ones was also technical SEO as table stakes, basically using any of the free tools that are available online to basically kind of get you a decent review of your site, just to make sure that it is crawlable and indexable, just kind of like basic things. If you built your site probably with WordPress, Squarespace, something else, you're probably fine. If you built it yourself, I would definitely be looking at tools and looking very closely at them, more so than if you used a popular builder. Mm-hmm. And then, Google Maps basically was the other one, is basically saying like that is a far easier algorithm to rank in than trying to rank in kind of the general bucket of everybody else. And plus, you don't want that national traffic anyways. So the main thing was basically after that was looking at Google Maps in terms of a radius. So if you're in Europe, this doesn't apply as well, but in the United States, it's about like minutes away. So if you're 20 minutes away, that's your distance instead of kilometers or, off sun, public transport routes or whatever it might be that might be more convenient to your local clientele. In this case, it would be a driving clientele, so minutes away from the house. Looking at that radius and then saying, this is my competition set, and how do I beat this competition set? So looking at their sites, going through their information and trying to understand what's different between all of them. There's an old advertising trick, really, but it's basically if you cover up the name of a brand, your brand, with your thumb and then read the slogan and you replace it with a competitor, if it's still true, it's a terrible slogan. So it's like, whatever vet in whatever city since 1950, if there's that doesn't really mean anything. Or you provide quality care, what your competitors don't. Like a lot of these statements just don't mean anything. So trying to instead remove the generic frivolous kind of statements, instead trying to focus in on what makes you interesting, what makes you different, highlight those items, but make sure, at least from just a general search perspective and AI perspective, your site is crawlable, indexable, and then lists all the things that you can do. I also showed him alsoasked.com to show kind of different queries that you could, if you want to build out FAQ content or kind of broaden it out a little bit. But kind of note that if you're trying to be a vet clinic, stick around with vet clinic. Don't go too dive deep into, we saw a bunch of queries around vet billing. You're going to get national traffic that's really not useful to you. If you're trying to get leads, talk about the local area, talk about what you do, and try to get that keyword-rich kind of information up there. So, I
think some of the thoughts that come to mind too as you're describing this vet clinic, right, works well with what Dave said. Right? If you're a local vet clinic, hey, find the local dog parks.
Oh yeah.
And be the cleanup crew and put your little sign up there, right? There's something about if building community and tapping into the local community that is so important as part of a local strategy. Because to your point, it is a minutes sort of situation. And if they're seeing you within their Google reviews, and it's not just that you have the service that somebody's looking for, it's they also recognize your name and they see your name and you go, oh, that's trusted. That's fantastic. Like,
right.
That plays into it greatly. And one of the things I think about with this rise in various AIs is, and we've talked about it here on the show before, is that trust factor. And this just keeps coming back and back, because if the copy that you see and the videos that you watch could all be created by an AI, and there's not sort of a human connection, you got to find different ways of establishing trust with potential customers that doesn't rely on digital content.
All right. Mm-hmm. I think showing your face is important. Oddly, that was just a random comment for the small business side of trying to not just be a name. Because building a brand, especially these days, is quick and easy. I can throw up a brand and a site in the next hour.
With beautiful stock photography.
Exactly. It doesn't really mean anything. And I can get listed on Google with generic photos of a generic place, or just, random logo imagery. But that doesn't mean anything. Again, that connection point, the trust point, like that has to be built. And it's still a human connection.
Mm-hmm. The other thing it's related to this conversation, it's something I've been noticing a lot recently, is the frustration I have with FAQs or reviews not answering the question that I care about. Oftentimes, for specific products, there's things you want to know. How well is that shirt going to wash the 7th time?
Right.
And it is so hard to get the answer to that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like there's so many. That's another angle, I think, is sort of what are the content niches related to your product that are just simple and easy to fill. And I'm not saying go buy fake reviews to say, oh, I watched it 7 times by any means, but okay, put it in your FAQs. Hey, this is what you can expect in terms of level of shrinkage or whatever it is that is the problem for your particular product that people commonly run into.
You could also put out just speaking as a brand standpoint, you could also put out as an e-commerce platform as well, saying that products from this brand typically wash well, or something like that. You can put out some, statements like that, saying that in other reviews of other products, because it might be a brand new product, might not have that many reviews yet. You can say those kind of statements of saying, generally speaking, this brand runs small. Whatever else, kind of trying to give you something, because I think one of the big annoyances I have commonly with reviews is that the purchaser was asked to give a review too quickly. And what I get is packaging.
Yes.
It arrived, it looks okay. And it's like, but does it work? Oh, we haven't tried it yet, clearly.
Yes.
It arrived dented, it missed some parts, it's broken on arrival, the package was damaged. You get these kind of very basic reviews of saying, it looks nice, I'm sure it will work fine, 5 out of 5. And it's like, so you didn't try it yet? 5 out of 5?
Yes. And where this circles back with some of the future of search and AI conversation is that right now you can try and get that niche within your search query, but it's pretty rough. LLMs make it much easier to articulate, here's what I'm looking for in a product.
Yeah. And
if potentially they have the data in which they can say, oh yeah, this particular product meets this thing that we understand you're trying to ask for. Maybe not understand isn't the right word, but do you see what I'm going with that, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. Because this was a recent personal example. So I was trying to find, it was a potassium supplement. So I was searching online, just a random thing, but I was looking online and I was trying to figure out, and I found on Amazon lots of different amounts that I can purchase. And some people are taking them multiple times a day. Okay, you have too much of this, it's not a good thing. So what's the amount? And I kept getting NIH, the UK health organization's required amounts for men or something like that for a daily consumption. I'm like, but this is a supplement. This doesn't mean my entire diet. So assuming, I don't know, an American diet, how much of this do I need before I am taking too much? Like, is there an assumption that my diet provides X amount and then that's the amount? Or am I supposed to, and then some were saying this multiple times a day. Like, it was so funny because this information was so disjointed. There was the quantity on the product. There was a daily amount, suggested, but there was no time between that said, this is the amount that I should be taking.
Yeah.
And that was the piece that was frustrating to me. It just smacked me in the head of like, this is the current search experience to a T. I get this e-commerce result. I get this generic top query, and I get this middle that's missing. That basically, that's where I see where any AI tool could pop in and say, an AI says this, with that, or a little bit of reasoning model, your diet likely provides half of that. You don't want to take too much, so you should take most one of these milligrams. Here's 3 products that you could buy that would, fit that amount. Something like that would be much more sensible. And there's also like other added information that I don't have as well, which I think is always the narrow aspect of Google, where if I am taking this, should I also be taking something else? Or should I just be changing my diet a bit and involving certain types of fruits and vegetables that would be easy for me to consume, and I don't even need this whole thing? Like, there's these added elements. And it so hits me with this idea that we are still searching keywords and getting keywords back. The difference is, if I talk to my doctor, I can say, how much do I need? He will tell me. He'll tell me the amount. He'll give me warnings. He'll give me, by the way, you should also be doing this. Or, hey, by the way, you could just forget all of this and eat more bananas, as it turns out, are not enough, but eat something else. And that would be fine. Like, it's the complete answer, the expert answer. And that's the piece I'm missing. Like the Dahlia question of, I'm looking for these items, but I'm looking for them, of course, packaged together so I can get them shipped at the same time. And I don't want to work with 5 different companies and go through the shopping experience 5 times when I can just go through it once. And I have specific requests.
I want to uncover more. I want to discover more. Like, this is
and if
this
I know
one.
this, what else should I know about it? Or you should tell me also, hey, by the way, this one looks really cool and it seems just like this other one, but it turns out it is highly temperamental and it won't work for your particular situation. Like, those kind of pieces, which a friend who is a neighbor would tell you, an expert.
Yes.
Someone who's an expert would give you the full answer, the complete answer. And I think that's the piece we're missing. The frustration I have, of course, with any AI tool is the moment they become experts, I start questioning it and start finding holes where it's hallucinated, very highly questionable. Here's a whole bunch of URLs. Oh, wait, those URLs don't contain any of the cited information that apparently has been cited by these URLs. Like, oh my gosh, I was doing one yesterday. It was so frustrating with ChatGPT, and it kept giving me diagrams that were literally the exact same image. It was like, do you want a diagram? I'm like, yes, this is an angles and design kind of question. It was like, yeah, give me a diagram. And it shows me the diagram. Here's options 2 and 3. And it literally gives me the exact same image 2 more times. And I was like, come on. It was like, oh, my mistake. And it gives me, of course, another set of 3 images that are exactly identical. I'm like,
and notice this idea that you brought up of like the missing middle, this sort of delta between the current keyword search experience and what we think AI will be capable of doing. Right. Notice our assumption is that the information we're looking for exists. And I suspect for a lot of the topics we've talked about, it does exist, right? We've given examples where it's like, your doctor or your average, gardener down the street would have this information. And I wonder too, if once these AI becomes ubiquitous and the information that's out in the world is accessible in a much more particular contextual way, once that becomes ubiquitous, we're going to reach a new bubble, which is the actual limits of human knowledge. And then to your point, part of the trick is going to be, are the AIs we're working with good enough to know, like, this is the limit of our knowledge versus like, this is speculation versus I just made this up? we're going to start encountering that. And then our frustration is going to be, we haven't figured this out yet. Why hasn't somebody studied the very particular growing habits of this particular variety of dahlias in Minnesota in my particular soil? And then we're really going to be annoyed.
Yeah. That's going to be the edges, but that's the edges of an expert too, because you can ask them that same question. They might be an expert. I was watching, this was last summer, some gardening videos from Canada. Similar enough climate, I thought, I was like, this should work. So it was fantastic to hear from them on it was a gardening clinic, and they had a bunch of interviews, and they were going through like, here's some, idiot-proof gardening things, which I was like, yes, this is what I'm looking for. So it was great content for me. But I was able to then take that and expand that, because it said, this is what's good. And there was a local organization, so it was meaning their area. But I was able to then, with enough knowledge of zones, to understand, the growing zone is a little different for me, but it's going to be good enough and it's going to be close enough. So able to expand upon that with basic reasoning, which I think is also like a capability that AI can have, is that extra edge, which says, probably this will work, instead of being these confident answers that I'm getting today from different AI tools, is basically like, this is going to work. And it's like, you're literally saying something that's not even true. Like that's at least, maybe color code your answers, or saying these things in blue are solid and these things in red are questionable.
The skill of the AI age, bullshit detection.
Exactly. Like, give me an edge on this, of like, because that's the thing, is an expert tells you those things, of being like, it probably will be okay with your environment, but it's really just meant for this environment. And then you take that information and you say, okay, I made this person pretty uncomfortable with this question. I'm giving this maybe a 40% chance of working, and maybe it's still worth it to me. I'll still give it a shot. Why not? Or maybe it's not. But an expert can expand upon that. And humans are much better, to Dave's earlier point, of looking at past information, past history, and being able to try to think that trend line is going to continue as it goes forward. And people are terrible at making estimates. We know this. I mean, there's no scientific proof of that people are terrible at. I mean, heck, if they did it, everybody would win the lottery. It's just, we're not good at that.
Do you know what'd be really cool, though? Is you had talked about sort of the expert, sort of, we hope most of the time, right, when you go to the doctor, they say, hey, this is sort of what we know. Here's your range of options.
Right.
Better you get to make a decision. That's a best case scenario. Sometimes you get experts who just say, this is the way to go. And it's total nonsense, right? So that happens in the human world as much as the AI world. Oh. What I was thinking about, though, is there's an economist. Her name is Emily Oster, and she has become much more visible in the public eye because she wrote a wonderful book called Expecting Better, and now has a podcast and a whole content series that's purpose is, let's give people the data that we have so that they can make decisions for themselves. And so Expecting Better is all about like, hey, here's the things we actually know about pregnancy and whether you should eat sushi so that you can make a decision. Yeah. And how cool would it be if that was one of the models in which we engage with various AIs, with the information they provide is, hey, here's the information we know, sort of laying it out in the way that you make the decision now as the human actor interacting with the AI.
That'd be wonderful, because that's the research that we do on Google right now. Google has the shotgun idea of, I don't know, here's 10 different pages that might have the answer you're looking for. Well, I mean, it's infinite scroll now, so it's even more than that, but that's their response to it versus giving you a complete, answer. Kind of the librarian answer versus the library answer. That's what I really want. I want the librarian to tell me what the kind of the full is, instead of just giving me a stack of books for me to read myself. So, well, this is a good place, I think, to close it out. Ruthie, fantastic conversation. Glad to have you a part of it. Dave as well. Thank you all, and see you all in the next episode.
Cheers.
Thanks all. Bye.